Live from Liverpool, we need to talk about ghosts with Kevin Eustace.
It's Sunday. You know what that means, don't you? It's Sunday sermon time. It's time to spend at least half an hour in my company whilst we discuss the paranormal and everything thereabout. Yes, listener stories, don't you know? That's the point of the show. And if you've got a listener story, don't forget you can send it in to contact@talkaboutghosts.com and I read it out, for that's how the show works. I hope that you're all fantastically well and no variants have got into your life. They're coming up with a new one each and every week, aren't they? It's like, no, you can't open that shop because there's an eggy variant now. Yes, smells of eggs. Keep your mask on. Okay, Boris. Anyway, in my life, I went and bought a pair of jeans from Primark. Now, Primark is like a discount clothes retailer in the UK. I think it's called Pennies in Ireland. I think that's where it comes from, actually. Anyway, long story short, Kev, a couple of months ago, bought a pair of jeans from there, and I thought that they were super skinny jeans, okay? So I went and bought another pair of super skinny jeans. It turns out the jeans I bought last time were just skinny jeans. If you want to know the difference between super skinny and skinny, then may I suggest you grip your wrist with the other hand and squeeze very gently. Now that's skinny. Now I want you to squeeze like you're trying to pop your hand off. That's super skinny. So kind of like Ross in Friends this morning. 12 minutes to put on a pair of jeans. 12 minutes. Not only that, I coupled it with a new leather belt that I'd bought. So every time I bent or walked, there was a squeak like they were leather pants. Now, obviously, they're not leather pants. I went to see my sister. She laughed for the entirety of my stay. I travelled back home, struggling to drive. I got back in. I said to Becca, I'm taking these off right now. And I'm putting my old jeans on because these are torture. Couldn't get them off. Literally, she was howling. She couldn't hold a breath. She was laughing that much. She was pulling on these pants. The cat, the neighbour's cat, was terrified because it looked like I was removing a second skin, like some sort of toad. It was bizarre. Anyway, you'll all be glad to know that I have the circulation just about back in my legs, which is nice. But yeah, super skinny jeans? Nah. I think anytime you get over 40, just stay away from skinny jeans in particular, you know. I don't have the legs nor body for them, really. But I also don't like wearing big flabby jeans that make you look like you've jumped out of an aeroplane and they're just... Can I've got thin legs? Nobody needs to know about this, Kevin. This isn't paranormal. Let's get back on track. Anywho, I've been doing a lot of thinking recently, this show, based on a lot of feedback that I've been getting. And realistically, that last 2.5 minutes that you've just listened to is kind of part of what I'm going to talk about. So, I'm in two minds. I'm leaning towards day on day, rebranding the show, in all honesty, because there's several reasons for that. One, I think I may have went a bit the other way, and the first part of the show kind of backs that up, in just chatting and trying to be funny and trying to chat bubbles. And I know some people like it, but I know a lot of people don't. And I get that. I do get that. At the same time, I don't want to change the fundamentals of the show, but maybe it's time to like get a new theme tune. It sound like Little Britain, but you know what I mean? Get a new theme tune, make it more structured in a way, still keep it jovial. But so what's led to this is I've had a few emails off people saying, I've noticed that I'm doing it now. Like, I've noticed that you do nothing but talk about yourself until you get to the ghost. It's like, sorry, I'm trying to make you laugh. Clearly not doing it very well. And two, I've asked a couple of people to come on to do interviews and they've kind of said, no, it's not as serious, or doesn't seem as serious as shows that they like to be presented on, which again I get. It's kind of annoying because the fundamental belief in the paranormal and the discussion around the paranormal is here. Do you know what I mean? I believe 100%. I have quite a vast knowledge in the paranormal, like I'm sure a lot of you guys do who listen. And just because it's presented in a sort of humorous, attempted way anyway, shouldn't necessarily deflect from the fact that there's still a sincere belief and, anyway, just something I've been mulling on. Let me know what you think. I may put out a load of like polls to say, would you like this in the show? Would you like that on the show? I don't know. But I do feel like it's a time of flux and maybe a time for a change. Time will tell. Anywho, that entire part there is just me speaking my mind, which is what I've said I won't do anymore. So, swings and roundabouts. But we do need to get to our paranormal type of things, because that's the point of the show, of course. I do hope that you're all fantastically well. It goes without saying that I do hope that. And a big thank you to everyone who got in touch about the Patreon episode that we just done, where me and Becca received distant Reiki from the wonderful Amy. And thank you again, Amy, if you're listening. It was wonderful. Very nice of you to take the time out of your day. Obviously, only our Patreons got to listen to that. I'll probably put it out as a standard episode in the future, so everyone gets a chance to listen. But yeah, it was really good, and we had like quite constructive feedback on it. It was really good. So thank you again, Amy. Now, speaking of Patreons, of course, anyone who is a Patreon knows what this already, but you get 2 extra shows each and every week when you're a Patreon. Now, they are sometimes me just waffling, but they are also, such as today, on a Sunday, we have a paranormal Patreon special. And today's I'm going to be looking back at a 14 Times magazine that I found, which is just full of listener stories that they felt were so good they've printed them in the mag. So we're going to go over some of these classic ones, and it's dead good. And if you want to become a Patreon, you can head over to patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts. And over there, you can sign up, get those 2 extra shows. And yeah, it's a bit of a laugh. We have some competitions sometimes and things like that. And when you do sign up, you also get your name. You get your name sung out by the foreigner. You get your name sung out by me. Yes, you do. And I'm going to sing that out for you now, if you've signed up. And we've had a few people sign up this week, and they go by the names of Natalie Croxon, Megan Condit, Neil Keating. By the way, Neil Keating is the person who done the logo. You know, my face on the logo. That's Neil Keating, yes. My very best friend, and also a very talented artist, obviously. It was Paul Beveridge who done the fonts, etc. around it, but Neil is the illustrator/artist. Go check his work out online. Search Neil Keating, yes. Kevin Hogg, Faith Montez, and Bill Campbell. So we've got quite a few there, and I need to try and find a way to get them all into a thank you song. And not only that, one of our new Patreons, I believe it was Kevin, has asked that I sing this song in the style of Sir Paul McCartney, which is a bit of a blast from the past. So I don't know whether I can conjure him back up again, but we'll see. The guitar is indeed out. Oh, sorry. The guitar is indeed out. Hey, everybody. I'm Sir Paul McCartney. You remember me being shot back in the early episodes by none other than Stewie Griffin. Oh, that was weird, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm back with more terrible accents and a song to say thank you to our new Patreons. Gear! Natalie Croxon, Megan Condit too, Neil Keating, Kevin Hogg, Faith Montez and Billy Campbell too. I just would like to say a Patreon thank you. Ended it on a 7th. Well, thank you, Sir Paul, for making the time to come and play that song. You're very welcome. Bye, guys. Anyway, I think that's the last we will ever guaranteed hear from Mr. Paul McCartney. Oh, sorry, Sir Paul McCartney. He didn't spend all this time to become a Mr. Anyway, thank you to all of our Patreons. Don't forget, guys, when you go and sign up, you get 2 extra shows each and every week. You support the show and allow it to keep running, which is the most important part. And you get your name sung out, which is the least important part. But do go over to patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts, and you can sign up there. And nearly turn back into Sir Paul then. Anyway, let's get to some spooky stuff, finally. And we are back, and let's get right into it, shall we? Our first email today comes in from Stephanie with an I. And that used to confuse me, that. Like, we've seen her on Karate Kid first when he says to his girlfriend, I'm Daniel with an I. And I'm like, what? You've got 2 I's? But it just means the I's at the end, where you'd say Stephanie IE. It's just Stephanie with an I. Very nice way to spell it too. And she writes, hey, Kevin. Hey, Becca. And neighbouring fur baby. Oh, meow. My boys and I love the show and are frequently fantastically spooked. Good alliteration there. It is especially a treat as I drive from patient to patient in my home health nursing role. Well, God bless you, Stephanie. I would love to do a Zoom to regale scary tales from when I was a creepy kid who always saw and felt things. Well, then we should arrange this, Stephanie. Yes, we should. Not that it's changed much, but I do make an effort to block out the creepy stuff these days. For now, I will share a handful of experiences I've had in our now forever home, as well as those of my sensitive Ethan, who is 9. When looking at houses, I was instantly drawn to our 1901 Craftsman shotgun-style home, with fireplaces in each main bedroom, dining room and living room, the hardwood floors, tall windows and high ceilings. I was hooked. I often wonder if maybe there was something else drawing me in. As I look back, I've grown up in a few haunted homes. So did the haunted feeling seem like home to me? It's rumoured that this house is cursed. Divorces, a murder, and deaths over the years. Luckily, my high school sweetheart, my boys and I have thus far survived. One stormy April night, just after putting my boys to bed, I looked back at my eldest bedroom's door and thinking he had got up. Quick as a flash, I saw an old man coming from the closed bedroom door, wearing a khaki-coloured knee-length trench coat, and he was putting his hat on, making his way to the front door just to the right. I also saw an umbrella in his left hand. It was the first and last time I saw him. That room had been an office in the previous owner's home. Maybe he didn't want to share the space with an 8-year-old boy. In brackets, he's now 13. Over the past 7 years, both of my boys and my 2 nephews have on multiple occasions stated that they felt someone was watching them. It's happened to me as well. Another oddity. Once I was up late, having a beer, talking to one of my friends on the phone. Suddenly she says, "Is someone with you? I hear someone talking." In brackets, not the last time that one happened with her either. Just as I responded, no, I felt creeped out. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and there was a sound of fingers snapping in a circle around me sitting at my dining room table. As it was happening, I told her about it and its location. It made a full circle around the table, then snapped off into the kitchen where it sounded like someone opened the fridge and then shut it. A hungry ghost, perhaps? Now, just a month or so ago, the hair raised on my arms as Ethan came running out of the game room, in brackets, the creepy room he refuses to be his bedroom as originally intended, and told me he heard fingers snapping from the window seat into the closet, and then felt someone watching him. In brackets, I always feel like someone is watching me as I pass by, or if I'm in that room. Strange for such a cheerful light blue and white sunny room. The first Halloween we spent in this home, after trick or treat, I elected to stay home with the kids and binge watch A Haunting, or some similar show. My husband went off with family to my dad's music studio to listen to family and friends jam and party out. The boys had fell asleep, and I got up to get some cheese, crackers and pickles, as well as a nice iced water. I gave my cat, Puck, fresh water in his bowl, shown it to him, and headed back past the creepy room, through the bathroom, and into my bed. Here comes Puck, and goes straight for my ice water. So I pick him up, walk back through the bathroom, pause at the creepy room, and I'm drawn to look in. I see only the toddler-sized rocking chair, and take Puck to his water. I turn around, start to make my way back, and there is that little rocking chair smack dab right in the middle of the hall that I just went through several times. The hair on my arms raised, and I avoided that route back to bed and used the door in the shotgun hallway instead. I could barely bring myself to turn on the scary show again, but thought maybe watching others will get my mind off mine. The creepy feeling remained until my husband got home. He asked why the kids' rocker was out in the hall. He thought I was pranking him when I told him, in brackets, skeptics. Final tale of terror for now. This was just about the scariest thing to happen to me in my life. One night, I lay in bed in that spot between sleep and awake, cosy, content, warm and snuggly in my blankets. Suddenly, I sense someone next to me at the side of the bed, and it's emanating pure evil. Something said, "Don't look," in my head. That was not of this terrible feeling presence. Then my blankets pulled down my body, all the way to the foot of my bed. I felt as if I didn't do something now, or get away, that something terrible would happen. I could just barely move. There was tremendous pressure on me. I finally managed to fall out of bed, crawling around the bed on my belly with this thing just growling at me. As I fell out of bed, I caught sight of shark-like teeth in a mouth, but was reminded by something in my head, don't look. Don't look in the eyes. Go, go, go. Crying, bawling, trying to scream, not making a sound. I reach up to the door, working my hand up. Finally, I touch the doorknob. In this moment, I sit straight up in bed with a blood-curdling, terrified scream, waking up, in brackets, a question mark. Tears streaming down my face. I look down. The covers are folded down neatly to the foot of my bed. My husband came in and asked what's wrong. All I could do was point at the blankets. Eventually, I told him. He said it was a bad dream. Maybe so. As I did later dream, I was fighting with this creature in the walk-in closet, battling with it to leave my home, laughing at it when it growled and screamed, saying it had no power here and that God commands it to go back from whence it came. Or were they dreams? Or out-of-body experiences? Well, I hope this was enjoyable. There are more odd experiences in this house, past and present, that I'm happy to share, as well as nursing experiences, and many from mine and my family's haunted lives. Happy haunting, everyone, and stay safe. Sincerely, Stephanie. Wow. Stephanie, we need to get you on a Zoom call ASAP, because that is amazing. I think I'm not going to be the only one who's listened to that story. And the part where you say there was clicking fingers moving round you in a circle. What in the devil's boxer shorts was that? I mean, I visualised that very well. If you're like me and as you're visualising that story, did anyone else see us sat at a round table and the things going round her and then heading off to the left into a kitchen? I mean, I know that's what she described, but I'm saying, I've got a visual at the kitchen to the left. Anyway, that was utterly brilliant and terrifying. And then for your son to hear, I mean, just terrifying. Something so random and simple even as the clicking of fingers. That shouldn't be terrifying. But in that context, it sincerely is. That's proper shook me up. Like Elvis Presley on a merry-go-round. But seriously, Stephanie, that's amazing. We do need to get you on a Zoom call so we can find out more about that. And it's interesting. It brings me on to another thing, actually. There's two things that I want to go on to. So the first part of that story where you said a man in a trench coat wearing a hat. I remember, now I don't know whether this was a dream or not, and I've mentioned this prior in the show too. When I was a kid, and my mum was still alive, and I was maybe 9 or 10, they used to go out and we'd be left with a babysitter. And they went out one night, and obviously our rooms were upstairs, and we had a balcony landing area that you could look down into the hall. And it was a really rainy night, dark night, obviously, because it's night. That's what happens, Kevin. Welcome to the world. And I heard the front door go and went over to the balcony and looked over into the hall and thinking that I'd see my mum and dad coming in. But there was a man stood there. And I'm talking like I could only see head down. It's a very short hall, so we could only literally see on top of him. And he had a black hat on, a black trench coat, and he was like shaking the rain off. And then he left. And my room was at the back and my sister's room was at the front. And I didn't really go into my mum and dad's room, even when they weren't in, because it was terrifying. So I didn't go to the front to see if you could see him walking up and down the street. And then my mum and dad came back and I was like, who is the guy? And they were like, no, you've imagined that. You must have been asleep. And when I've talked about it in the future with like my dad and that, he turned around and went, well, maybe it was someone, but we had the door unlocked and he got the wrong house. He's just walked in and thought, shit, I shouldn't be here. I was like, I don't know what it was, but it didn't half strike a chord when you said that. And the other thing that struck a chord, which is fresh ghosty news in the last 24 hours, is when you said that you work, obviously, in healthcare. Now, a listener of the show, indeed a Patreon, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Christopher Conda, he's had to pop into hospital over the last week for a good MOT, and he's had to stay overnight a couple of nights in the Royal Hospital in Liverpool. It's called the Royal. It's not like anything to do with the Queen. It's called the Royal Liverpool Infirmary, and he's had to stay there. And we've been texting back and forth over the last few days. And he said to me, in fact, when people come round, should I ask if they've got any good ghost stories? And I said, yeah, of course you should, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to put any music behind these because it's literally just a text message that he's sent. But these are fantastic. So he basically sent me a message and said, I'm doing all right, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to ask the nurses if they've got any ghost stories the next time they come round. I've said, boss idea, keep me updated. He said, will do. There's got to be some scary stories here, surely. I said, which hospital are you in? And he said, the Royal. Then a few hours later, he sends this. These are some of the belters they've just told me. And these are only short, so there's no music behind them or anything like that. But listen to these. Number 1. A porter was on floor 8, which was an empty ward. Walks past a room and sees a nun. Apparently, they have a photograph of her. So I've immediately went back and said, you need to find this photograph however you can. Number 2, he says, the MERT team, MERT, and in brackets, I think that's what she said, basically a team that gets called for emergencies, so senior doctors and nurses. One of the doctors en route passes a woman crying on the stairs. She says, are you okay? Don't worry, I'll get someone to come and see you. The woman on the stairs, sobbing, says, it's too late. The woman, the nurse, gets to the room where she was asked to go, and you guessed it, the woman she just passed on the corridor was the woman lying in the bed, and she just died. Just got a shiver repeating that. That's amazing. And the last one, Polish guy was on a ward and was very abusive and shouting. Basically kept calling all the other patients' names, shouting, keeping them all awake, and caused loads of bother. He ended up passing away on the ward. Patients, even to this day, complain about a foreign person shouting and screaming in the night when there's no one actually doing it. Staff just say, we'll have a word and ask them to stop. Amazing. Now, I don't know whether he's still in. I'll need to message him. But if he is, 1, we need the picture of the nun, pretty please. And 2, you need to ask more because the Royal Hospital is terrifyingly old. I told you that one of Becca's mates is a nurse and she worked there for ages. And she's told me some horrific stories, not necessarily about the paranormal. Oh, God, you don't even want to hear some of the stories. But anyway, one that is a bit paranormally that she said is about, because they're renovating the hospital now, they've built a new one, so they're closing down the wings one by one and the wards one by one while they transfer stuff over. And she said there's one particular ward when they were working overnight that had just been closed down, completely pitch black, and they had to go down this corridor to go and get it. She said, and they ended up drawing straws to see who was going to go because no one wanted to go down this ward in the dark. Just terrifying places, hospitals, aren't they? But I suppose that's what you get when you deal mainly with death. Yes, you ask for an orange and you get an orange. What more do you expect? A citrusy fruit. That's nonsense, Kevin. Anyway, let's get back to more of your stories. Now, our next email is a nice short story from William, and it's called Shadow People and Work. I work for a tyre wholesale distributor, and we have 6 warehouses here on this property. A few co-workers and I have a running joke about how warehouse 3 and 5 are haunted by a man we call George. Sometimes perfectly stacked tyres will get pushed over or whole entire boardings will just slide to the side and hundreds of tyres will go everywhere. But last Friday morning, I saw my first shadow person. But what makes it even more weird is that it walked into a stack of tyres like it was a doorway. Then not even 30 seconds later, it was followed by 3 more. Ever since then, it stays ice cold in that section. We don't have heat or air conditioning in the warehouse, mind you. Me and another co-worker feel like we're being followed now. I'm a firm believer in the paranormal, and I have been since I was a kid. I haven't told anyone other than the same co-worker that I've mentioned. I've done some research on the property, but I can't find anything that would make the property haunted. Unless, of course, there's a Native American burial on the property. Sincerely, William. Amazing, William. Short and sweet, and therefore very believable. I don't know what to say there, really. It's interesting when you say the shadow people, there was 3 of them. That's eerie. And also that now you feel like you're being followed. You'll have to keep us adrift, please, will you, William? And let us know if you are now haunted. I'm not wishing it on you, mate. I'm not asking that your house gets possessed. But if it does, can you please make it beneficial to the podcast? That would be great. What a horrible thing to say, Kevin. I know, Kevin. Anyway, shall we have one final one? And this has came through the Facebook page, yes. But I sent it to myself so I could read it on the show. And this one comes from Jill. And she writes, Hi, Kevin. Hi. I'm recently new to your podcast, but I'm really enjoying it. Why, thank you. Especially the dark paranormal. Why, thank you again. I love your sense of humour and the humanity that you bring to this show. Oh, God bless you. I'm based in Australia, though I'm originally from the Northwest, and I know Liverpool very well. Oh, maybe listening to you takes me momentarily to my homeland. Well, I'm glad that you do. Or it does, even. I might have a story for you, she says, and she does. It's not about demons or devils or even ghosts as such. This is Jill's story. I encountered some really strange stuff whilst my dear mum was passing in December 2003. Birds singing outside the hospital room at 2 a.m. I did read the explanation for this in a Stephen King novel, but I don't remember which one. Spiritually, however, I was on the journey with her, holding her hand very tightly. There were 4 of us in her hospital room: my dad, my sister, and my aunt. Strangely enough, each female heard the birds, but not my dad. About a week before my mum passed, her brother Johnny passed away too, and he was obviously waiting for her. Wow, she took me on a really high-octane spiritual journey. I don't know if it was because we were always so close, or just that we were holding hands too tightly, but I saw, heard, and felt everything. She kept shouting, "I'm coming, Johnny." Then she'd say, "I'm not ready yet." And, "I'm coming, I won't be long." I could see a huge void, in brackets, as if she was trying to make the leap across the void, but was frightened. Everything was bright and there was plenty of green. I felt like it was a precipice and she had to make the leap. The void looked like a whizzing tunnel, like a kaleidoscope. The greenery was on the other side. We had quite a bit of shouting out to Johnny, and then suddenly, all I knew was that she'd gone. I felt it. My body felt different, and I announced to my dad, my sister, and my aunt that she'd passed. Someone called in the doctor to confirm, and she had passed. I thought that would be the end of the strange feelings, but it wasn't. My dad used to ask me if she was happy and settled now. I knew that she wasn't settled because I kept on sensing her. A feather-like tingling on my shoulder, and the dreams. My dad even offered to pay for me to see Derek Akora, but I refused and told him I would know when she was at peace, which eventually I did. My bouts of sleepwalking started and proved to be very dangerous, especially when you go walking on a beach in the Maldives. I had somehow got out of the room and fortunately tripped before I ended up being shark food. After my holiday, the sleepwalking became less and less, until one morning I had the weirdest dream. I still don't know if it was a dream or not, or an out-of-body experience, because I had already had my heavy sleep, and this happened around 5 a.m. I remember it so clearly. I was sitting in a room that was made of glass and cheap leather-look benches, and everywhere outside was bright green with a splattering of white flowers. Mum was with me, and I asked her if Uncle Johnny was waiting for her, and she said yes, but he had a little boy with him. I must mention here that she lost my brother, her son, at 6.5 years old due to pneumonia and other physical disabilities. I had hold of her hand and she was cold, very cold, and I asked if she was happy, and she said that she was. My mum used to smoke, but smoking didn't kill her. It was an undiagnosed breast cancer that metastasized into her liver and killed her with 2 months of diagnosis. It was very sad. So I asked her if she was still smoking, and with that she just disappeared. And I woke up not knowing what the fuck had just happened, apart from deducing that my mum was settled and that I probably wouldn't be feeling her again. I told my poor dad, and he was relieved, but was desperate to join her. Sadly, he died of a broken heart. I remember him saying that he had to look smart for when he was reconciled with the love of his life once more. So, he chose a suit out of his wardrobe. This is important. My dad was no dresser and always looked like a tramp, but he didn't want to for this occasion. So when his turn arrived 7 years later, we had to find a suit. But it wouldn't fit, so it had to be cut up around the back just to fit him. So in the coffin, he looked like $1 million. But I still laugh thinking about when he finally met Mum and had to turn around. I know they are both together because I've seen them along with my little terrier that they must have with them. Strangely enough, I had a vision before Dad died where I seen them both again in a dark room surrounded by glass but with bright green grass and white flowers outside. I just didn't realise that the brown suit he was wearing at that time would be the exact one that he was buried in. Naturally, I'm frightened of dying, but my visions have helped me to accept that there is something out there, and that even though I'm now in Australia, my mum and dad will be waiting for me along with my other loved ones. Death isn't the end. Life is a journey, and death is nothing to be frightened of, as far as I've seen. I don't know if you want to read this, but it's very true and it stays with me every day of my life. I do believe that when my mum passed away, she took a piece of me with her. I've never gone public with my story, and it scares my husband, lol. Thank you, Kevin. Jill, thank you for being so open and vulnerable there with that story and for sending it in. It's an exceptionally interesting one. There's so much going on there, from out-of-body experiences to precognition. There's a plethora of paranormal purveyances that you are proud to have partaken in. So no, seriously, Jill, that's amazing. And it's beautiful and it's sad and it's everything that makes the paranormal topic emotive, I think. You know what's really interesting about it, though? The colour green. I know you've referred to it several times in that email, normally about the grass, obviously, which is green, but you've said how vibrant the green was. I listened to another show, I've told you about the Parapod, which I've interviewed Ian from the Parapod, and they're doing a movie. Great podcast. Go and check it out if you haven't already. A legendary podcast. Anyway, the two hosts on it, Ian and Barry. I listened to Barry's Patreon podcast because I'm a Patreon of his. And recently, he mentioned that very fact about the colour green featuring in a lot of paranormal experiences for people. And it rung a bell because, as I've said to you guys in the past, when I had my out-of-body experience when I was 16, the only way I could describe how I felt, and that's the key thing, how I felt, is to say green. I felt green. And I know you can't feel a colour without getting into synesthesia and all other words I can't pronounce, but I felt like the colour green. In fact, I'll go one further. It was green if the colour green was when you see oil on a road in the sun and you get that rainbowy effect, or if you press down the screen of a calculator and you get that oil effect. That's how it felt as well, but also green. Anyway, so I don't know what that link is between green and paranormal, but it seems to be there. It seems to be quite strong. Anywho, I think that brings us to the end of another weekly look at the paranormal. So as I said at the start, if you've got any thoughts for this show, because I'm a little bit in two minds what to do, I'm probably going to start putting up some posts and stuff on the Facebook page and asking for some opinions. I don't know. This, by the way, this isn't coming from me from a place of people have said I need to do this and I don't want to do it. I've been thinking for a while that, it needs a bit of a revamp. So I don't know. But if you do like this style of programming, then the Patreon is for you. Yes. And it also helps support the show. So by all means, go over to patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts, 2 extra shows each and every week. And I'm just about to record this week's show about 14 times best listener submitted stories. Yes. And in the meantime, I'm off to find a pair of pants that actually fit and possibly won't result in toxic shock syndrome. I've really enjoyed this episode. It's always a pleasure to speak to each and every one of you, and I'm very privileged that you do tune in. Tune in. It's not the 1930s, Kev, the fact that you download this show. So in the words of the late, great, he's not dead, Jeremy Springer from the mid-90s, take care of yourselves and each other. Tatty bye.